Welcome to the second day of AI4 2021. We have an amazing lineup of speakers to learn from today, along with equally notable attendees to network with. If you didn't say hi to that special person yesterday, the time is now. To kick us off today, we have an exciting panel here to discuss the ways AI is transforming business. On the panel, we have Jose Murillo, the Chief Analytics Officer at Grupo Banorte, Alex Ratner, the CEO and co-founder of Snorkel AI, Jeff Richardson, Chief Information Officer and VP of Technology and Data Analytics at Accelerated Enrollment Solutions, and Robert Robinson, Chief Product Officer and Vice President of Advanced Sensing Technologies at Honeywell. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage.
Hi, my name is Jeff Richardson. I'm going to be introducing our panelists today. And first, I'd like to start with Jose Murillo of Grupo Banorte. He's the Chief Analytics Officer. And Jose, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I am Jose Murillo, the Chief Analytics Officer for Benorte. Benorte is the second largest financial group in Mexico. A bank which has leapfrogged international competitors such as Citibank and Santander in recent years through its efforts to become a data-driven organization.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Alex Ratner, who is the CEO and co-founder of Snorkel AI. Alex?
Hey, Jeff. Thanks so much. I'm Alex, one of the co-founders and CEO of Snorkel AI. We're a two-year-old startup company that spun out of the Stanford AI Lab in 2019, building a data-centric programmatic ML development platform based around a new way of labeling and managing training data. And this was based on a Snorkel project that started back in 2015 at Stanford. That's been deployed in places like Google, Intel, Microsoft, number of government agencies, healthcare scenarios, et cetera. And I'm also on faculty at University of Washington in the computer science department. Super excited to be here and chat today.
Excellent, thank you. And next up, Robert Robinson, the Chief Product Officer and Vice President of Advanced Sensing at Honeywell. Robert, hello.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you very much. I'm Robert Robinson. I am the Vice President and Chief Product Officer at Honeywell Advanced Sensing Technologies here at Honeywell. Honeywell is a large conglomerate. We have a number of businesses here. One of the key drivers in our business is technology, and that innovation starts from the sensing element, and we leverage and utilize a number of AI capabilities and initiatives within our business. I'm really pleased to be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And last, and given the auspicious panelists we have today, probably least, is myself, Jeff Richardson. I work for a company called PPD, where I am the Vice President of Technology and Data Analytics, and I am the CIO of the Accelerated Enrollment Division of that organization. PPD is a global contract research organization, or CRO. We work with many pharmaceutical and drug companies, providing integrated drug development, laboratory work, lifecycle management, and the division that I work for helps to enroll patients and run patients through clinical trials for phase 2 and phase 3 trials, things like most recently, many of the COVID vaccine trials. We were partners on quite a few of those over the last year and a half and currently ongoing as well. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much. And I think we'll jump into our first question. So to everyone, when did you first learn about AI and what was your first experience with it? And we'll start with Jose. Jose, take it away.
Yeah, that's, I guess like many kids, I was a sci-fi fan. And the first time I learned about AI was when I watched Star Wars and later on Blade Runner and Space Odyssey. And it was a time that you can imagine a fantastic future, although in some cases it could be dystopian. So that was the first time that I knew about AI. And the first time that I really used AI was when I was working for Benorte, and I was trying to improve our customers' experience with our efforts to sell them credit cards. So it was not as cool as in the movies that I watched, but it was really very effective. We increased our conversion rate by 80%.
Excellent. Very interesting. Alex, how about you? I mean, you must have a pretty significant history with AI.
Well, I'm going to start in that same theme of that great answer and say that my first, I think, motivational exposure was, well, yeah, I think you hit some of the list that I loved as a kid. I also mentioned maybe the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, since there's actually a TV show coming out, and of the science fiction renditions of AI and how it's done today. Probably the most accurate. I think that the basic plot there is they predict the future in the sci-fi universe by looking at statistical principle or statistics of population movements and stuff. So giant counting machines is actually still the most accurate depiction of how AI and machine learning specifically works today. Anyway, great series, TV show coming out. And then first actual exposure, I'll start more with a problem than a solution. I was working with some of the patent corpus, which I first of all found fascinating, that you could, if you at least don't include the images, you could have all of the intellectual content that people, in the United States ever thought was worth, patenting in a thumb drive. And it was that accessible, but it wasn't readable. It wasn't parsable or usable in any structured format. And if you go deeper, doing the simplest thing, like, getting all the patents that belong to IBM under the various names and aliases was actually a terrifically difficult problem. So this led me into the world of natural language processing, of dealing with these extreme complexities of information and language, which we still deal with at Snorkel today, where our platform supports customers doing things like, pulling stuff out of complex legal contracts or news feeds or social media or, PDF forms. That led to how NLP was starting to be done back then, as about a decade ago, which was machine learning and AI. So that's my answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. And Robert, how about you?
Yeah, I have a pretty unique experience in mine. I think I have an engineering background myself, but sometime after high school and a few years in college, so something popped up where every time I went to a website or anywhere and I searched for something, in a few hours I would start receiving messages or emails about something. So if I had Googled something, I would start getting this email. So that was my first experience in trying to understand why. How did the system, how did the infrastructure know that I was interested in maybe a plane ticket? And why do I start getting emails about hotels and car rentals because I searched for a plane ticket on my laptop or something? So that was my first experience with AI in trying to understand what this is and what it's used for and kind of the application. I wasn't a big Star Trek fan per se, but just from that, it really sparked my interest from early stage in high school and college.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad that you went some other way, because it would have been weird if all four of us just said it was from sci-fi movies. For myself,
I have too many sci-fi nerds on a call, know, right? The whole thing will devolve.
I feel like I'm weirdly dating myself, like as a child in this, but like my two introductions to AI were The Terminator and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Those are the first ones I can recall. I don't think I understood when I was younger that Star Wars droids were actually like artificial intelligence, I guess. But my first real application of this was I majored in computer science in college, and there was a heavy focus when I was in college on security and cryptography and things like that. So there wasn't a lot of AI courses at the time. But when I graduated and got my first job, it was at a company that made hydraulics and hydrology CAD software. Mm-hmm. And they actually pioneered a genetic algorithm that used artificial intelligence to optimize hydraulic networks in potable water in cities. And I had to do tech support and help work on the product with our customers. So that was my first experience with how that worked. And then the people that were doing that development were actually just graduated from a bunch of master's and degree programs in AI. And I jumped into one of those programs, and that's how I got to where I am now, which is all weird neural networks and poorly fit regression models.
Awesome.
So what an interesting. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Alex.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's actually, one could have a whole discussion about the different, sci-fi correspondences to AI today. Like I think it's, just to make this, I'm not going to totally trail off and ramble, but just, one quick thing is that you think about actually the difference between Star Wars, like you said about those droids, not realizing it's AI. actually encapsulates a lot about how the field got AI wrong at first, starting back in the 80s, where we thought, the Star Wars droids, they can talk and speak and move around environments and, see things, but they can't pilot a spaceship, and they can't, do a computation to go, to the next planet. And that's where we thought as well, back in the 80s, there was like a summer program to just solve computer vision, because that's something that we find easy. So it must be the same for AI. And then it's very interesting that it actually turned out to be more like the exact opposite, right? We're still struggling to do the most basic thing with, reading contracts at scale or reading content on the internet, but complex computations or flight controls, pretty stably solved problems. So it actually, anyway, I'm sure we could do a whole other panel discussion about the different sci-fi
it's
that got it right or wrong. I couldn't help myself because it came up.
Yeah, we perfected like AI chess, and I love. There's a meme that I keep seeing with AI where it's the like AI vision gone wrong, and it's pictures of Chihuahuas' faces and blueberry muffins.
Yep.
And like it's how bad AI gets that over and over again, and we just can't seem to perfect that one. It's really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a theme maybe we'll come back to in terms of practical applications later, but I think there's a ton of hype in the market today and in the space, but a ton of real value. But I think the value is from being able to kind of not really do anything well enough to do very simple things well enough, right? We can't have an AI approach, read and parse a contract like a lawyer, but we're getting to the point where whether Snorkel or other technology, you could maybe use it to read a simple type of clause or fact at scale, right? So that is a tremendous value provider, right? But it's still just a baby step compared to what people often think it is, which is this, grand singularity. But maybe we'll return to that later in the.
All right, jumping into some meaty questions. Let's move on to our next question here. What sorts of projects, industries, and business functions stand to benefit from AI the most, and why? And I guess relevant to each of us, like in the industries you are in, where do you see that going? Let's start with Alex.
I think I ate up some of my time talking about Star Wars robots, so I'll give a quick answer here. But one very exciting area, and this is biased based on where we focus, but is around unstructured data. So one of the things that the last 5 or so years of progress in things like deep neural networks, Jeff, to your comment, have really given us a step change ability around is things like text data, PDFs, images, videos, all this stuff that isn't nicely aligned as a bunch of columns in a spreadsheet. And so I think that's going to that has been and will continue to be one of the next frontiers in terms of where there's still very tough, but there's a lot of uncaptured value and efficiencies to be leveraged. So that's one area that I think it's great to look to these days. All
right, Robert, what do you think?
Yeah, I think just from my experience and my background and where I come from, I think there's just a tremendous opportunity around the cognitive science area with respect to sensors and applications of sensors. If you really think about it, most of what sensors do today is really just measuring different measurements or different things that we want to measure. I think the next frontier for sensors and components like sensors in the whole IoT space is really trying to use that data and predict or do some analytical, provide some analytical insight with respect to what that data means. Because most of what we do today is collect the data, and then there's an analytical phase to it that is almost separated from the system itself. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for artificial intelligence within that space to not only empower the systems at the edge or at the sensor level to measure or collect data, but also at the same time present some predictions or some analytical capability for that system or that edge. So I think that's a really an untapped area for AI, where sensors could really be empowered with that capability going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, just not to plug your company too much, but we just moved into a new house, and we have, I think, 8 different Honeywell smart thermostats in the house. Yes. And I mean, we're right there. Like they're collecting, they're doing things based on programs. But if they could just have that like slightly next level where it was like, this is obviously the next thing you're going to want with whatever it's doing, that would be huge.
Yes. And it's amazing because there's been some work with some partners and things around the smart home. When you think about your home and the things that you do, everything from your filtration system, your HVAC system, your refrigeration, and the consumption of energy within your home, there's a lot of sensors today or devices that monitor that and measure things and give you information, but they don't act on it.
Right.
Not a closed loop. There's still a lot of human interference having to come in and do something, having to interject in various places. And I think the AI offers some capability in terms of enabling those devices to do a number of those things themselves and eliminate the human intervention that we have in majority of applications where you use sensors today.
I welcome our robot overlords. All right, Jose, how about you? What projects, industries, business functions, where do you see this growing, especially in your industry, where I think you've done a huge transformation recently?
A large determinant of the well-being of people is their financial strength. And I think I work in this industry, and perhaps I have a bias because I have a larger knowledge here. But at the end of the day, I think that our natural intelligence has fallen short to deliver to our customers into a situation where they are financially strong and they have a better understanding of their finances, and at the end of the day, that they don't fall prey to their own cognitive biases or their own shortcomings. And I think that artificial intelligence has a great potential to make people's lives better if their finances improve significantly. We've done several projects to help people increase their savings rates and become and that's at the end of the day, you would think, well, you'd like, as a bank, you would like people to be really indebted, and no, that's not the case. You want to have the view is to increase their customer lifetime value. So you want to do business through a long period of time, and that they are able to survive for a long time with you, and that they use your products in a wise fashion. So I think there's a great potential in finance, and that's why you've seen so many fintechs that they are rising and challenging the traditional way of doing finance.
Yeah, I am really excited about that. It is really, it's interesting to watch an industry change so much as the financial industry with machine learning and just more powerful information management. So in the pharmaceutical space, AI and machine learning obviously is hugely impactful. Specific to what my division does, the accelerated enrollment division, it's an kind of a thing people don't think about, but it's incredibly hard to get patients and volunteers into clinical trials, both in a timely way and effectively and when they're needed. So we use advanced AI and machine learning to try to get the right people into the right trials for the trial to complete successfully. Specifically with like vaccine trials that aren't like COVID vaccines, you have a very small window of a flu vaccine or an RSV vaccine timeframe to get people who might actually get the virus within the window of the study going on. So tactically getting those people targeted and notified and finding the right people is incredibly difficult. And I see that becoming only more and more prominent in that industry and helping to improve that faster, quicker, more agilely in the future. Any other thoughts or comments on that before we move on to the next question? Alex, any tie-in back to Star Wars?
I'm not even going to try. We haven't done our use case research there yet. We're still in this universe, but check back in a year.
Excellent. All right. So moving on to our next question. Which AI use case are you personally focused on and most excited about? And I think this time we'll start with Robert.
Yeah, so recently we launched our EdTech device, which is basically leveraging an optical sensor to be able to identify pollens and classify pollen. So most people have pollen allergies. I do. A number of us do have those. And today, primarily, what happens if you go to your home and you want to do a pollen test, or you go into a doctor, they take samples and they send it out to a lab to get to classify what type of pollen it is and tell you if you have allergies to pollen. What we did here in our group is basically take an optical sensor and basically try to classify pollens based on size, dimensions, and shapes to detect and determine which type of pollen it is, to tell you, one, the pollen count and the type of pollen that it is. Now, this is a very unique thing because if you think about it, there's always been optical sensors or image sensors. There's always been pollen. So how can we do that? It's AI, it's artificial intelligence. It's using that device to basically over and over again capture different images of pollen from different regions of the world and different regions, and be able to classify all of those with some machine learning capability to deliver this. So as we go forward, this product that we've launched is a product that's going to help people basically determine, one, if they do have pollen in their environment, and two, what type of pollen it is. So it kind of sheds some light into what we talked about earlier, Jeff, about the capabilities that you can embed in a sensor using artificial intelligence as you look forward to multiple things that we can do. So this is just basically the starting point for us. We've done it in one or two devices, and we're looking to do it, significant devices, not just at the sensor level, but at system level, complex systems and higher levels, maybe aircrafts, refineries, and other systems.
That's going to be hard to follow up because I think I'm most excited for that too. All right, so moving on, Jose, what do you think?
Well, the things that are exciting me the most right now are those things that help us understand much better the way our customers think, and we're working in the intersection between three things. All the disciplines that help us understand the behavior of the customers, such as anthropology, social psychology, behavioral economics, experimentation to really try the different things, and artificial intelligence. We're working. We've been using causal machine learning to really expand very fast what we are learning about our customers in our experiments, and we're building a behavioral mapping of our different customers so that we can have more relevant conversations with them and help them build a better financial future.
Excellent. I'm going to sneak in, Alex, before you this time. One of the things I'm most excited for with AI, like outside of the space that my industry works in, is just the ability for ML to just automate more tasks. I came from a software background originally and moved into this organization about a year ago. And I didn't really think about it, but companies that are not tech-based as their core, there's a lot of manual process in just day-to-day business that could be accelerated, helped, and free people up for more value add, like thought leadership things, just by using ML to do, the tasks that you can learn from data and then accelerate that task from. And then outside of that, like obviously in what we do, the ability to focus more AI and ML on getting more patients into more therapeutical trials faster is like, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is helping to help patients, whatever's wrong, like help them get better. And the uses of AI specifically there are nearly limitless. So I couldn't be more excited about that. And Alex, over to you for our wrap up on this question.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with how exciting all those answers are, and that's the fun thing about AI and machine learning specifically today, is there's such breadth of impact, and it's a broad umbrella. I'll give one quick answer for Snorkel, the company, and then one quickly on the academic side. I think for the company, we offer very it's a broad, very horizontal development platform. So I'll mostly just say as a theme, I'm day-to-day most excited about the use cases where it's really a 0 to 1 type shift, and specifically we focus on what's called the training data. So this is if you want to classify legal contracts at a bank or assist with underwriting decisions at an insurer, you need a bunch of data that's labeled with the correct answer, the ground truth label, and the machine learning model learns from that. That's the basic idea of at least the workhorse type of machine learning, supervised learning. And if you can get that data label cheaply out of house, then sure, you can still cost a lot. But the things that most excite me, the use cases that excite me most, are the ones that we're learning to unlock with new approaches to programmatically and automatically doing this labeling, right? So rather than having to go to a line of business team and say, hey, could you spend a quarter labeling contracts so I can pull information out of them automatically. You have them, sit down and push some buttons for a day on Snorkel, and then they can get that data to unlock all the great AI tooling that's out there. So that's just a kind of broad theme. On the academic side, I'm always very excited about the medical applications, in particular, physician assist. I think that's a lot of the queue triaging, information extraction from electronic health records. We had some stuff actually around COVID also, or some collaborators did at the Stanford Hospital. Things that help that kind of work with physicians to accelerate them. That's where I think the biggest healthcare impact, that'll be one big area of healthcare impact. So that's kind of academic side.
That ties in really nicely to our next question and my immediate thought on that next question, actually. So are there limits to how effective AI can be for business, and what are those limits? And I'm selfishly going to jump first into this because it ties directly into your answer now. But one of the limits that I see, right, because we deal with lots of patients, personal information, the health and safety of participants in trials, and the health and safety of somebody afterwards, after the trial is successful or not successful. And one of the limits I see is it comes down to a bit of our trust in how AI works, and then a bit of the inherent pitfalls in how AI works. Those black box models of an AI algorithm where you feed in very good quality data to something and you kind of let it run unsupervised for a little bit, and then you don't pay attention and it does something horrible as an outcome. And even one horrible outcome in an ocean of 10,000 outcomes that's horrible, and it will doom whatever you're doing to. It was dangerous. You shouldn't have done that, right? So the limit of how AI can be leveraged for medical data safely and successfully and transparently for me is one of the biggest areas I think that we need to focus on just as technologists of AI overall, to build those transparent, auditable AI algorithms that we can really prove are safe and functional, and move everything forward successfully and safely. So curious what everyone else thinks there. I guess let's jump first into Jose.
Sure, Jeff. I think in a philosophical way, you can think that there are moral limits to AI are similar to the limits that you would like for natural intelligence. If you had a human that is super intelligent, you would want that he would be working for the good of humanity and not just for its mere destruction. But in a more pragmatic way, what I would like to tell you, the limit is the data, and what you can get really depends on the data, and that's where you need to be very creative on how you use or on very much untapped resources, because in many companies you don't even have to go and look elsewhere. You have lots of data that probably you have discarded and have not really understood correctly. But I think that's the true limit that we face.
I couldn't agree more with you. The amount of information everyone collects is amazing. And if you can just put it to proper use, and I mean, touching not intentionally on what Alex does, though, it's classifying that and building those proper training sets, really is one of the biggest burdens I feel in making that successful. Robert, what do you think about that?
I couldn't agree more with Jose. I mean, there's not a scarcity of data. There's tremendous data. I think the limit is the ability to curate, model that sample data in an effective way so that you feed the machine, the right type of data. I think most times, to your point, Jeff, when you said, you could have a mistake, one error, most times when you root cause a solution that error, it's really fundamentally based on the fact that some data set or some data links are missing, right? You feed the model with certain things and you miss certain types of data or certain configuration of data. So I think having a very robust set of data samples and curating that, properly and accurately into the system, I think that's the key. I think the intelligence of the system today in terms of computational intelligence and capabilities is almost unlimited. I mean, computers and systems can do a ton today. I mean, in Honeywell, we're developing some quantum computing technology capabilities, and there's a lot you can do. The challenge is on the data side, a lot of people, and Alex, I think you could probably shed some light on this. A lot of companies and a lot of people still struggle in terms of what data is valid, what kind of data to use. For example, sometimes you find situations where companies or entities will use sample lab data to build their machine learning capabilities and then deploy a system in real life applications where the sample data is completely different from what the real sample in field looks like, right? So you run into problems like that. So it's really understanding the integrity of the data, curating the right data and expansive data in a larger set as possible to make sure that you enable the machine capabilities and artificial intelligence capabilities to be optimized. So I couldn't agree anymore.
Yeah, to your point there, also what I've noticed a lot is that the data drifts a lot as just things evolve. And
Yes.
There is a limited ability right now to manage properly data drift in commercialized or productionized models.
That's true. That is a continuous process. You find out a lot of times people launch a product and stop, right? Like anything else, right? They take a look at the virus. It's mutating. There's a Delta variant today, right? Who knows what the next variant is going to be? Very similar trend in almost every data set. It's always, pollens change, the structure, the size, the different mutations of pollens that happen over time. So there has to be a very effective long-term curating process of managing that data set and building that capability. It's an ongoing process. It's kind of a journey. It's not a destination. You just keep going on that journey to really optimize the solution.
And I'm noticing that's the hardest thing to sell up and downstream to outside people who are outside this industry, which is you've productionized this thing, we're done, let's move on to something else now. But it's no, you now own this pet and you have to deal with this pet for the lifetime of this pet. Like you have to care and feed for this over however long you want to leave it out there in the wild.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
Yep. Alex, what do you have to add here? Other than use my product.
Well, I'll stay away from that one. I feel like that's I try to stay away from straight up sales talk on a panel, especially one as interesting as this one. Right. I also feel bad because I'm supposed to interject some controversy here, but I can't for this answer. I have to say I wholeheartedly agree. And Jose, Robert, Jeff, how you articulated it. I mean, I'll say it in maybe a slightly more provocative way, but maybe not for anyone on this panel. I think, AI is about data today, not models, not algorithms, not inference. It all comes down to the data, yes. Right? Obviously, everything matters, but that's where, orgs, succeed or fail. That's where, if you look at state-of-the-art leaderboards, things, win or lose about creative new ways of labeling or curating or sampling or collecting sources of data, right? And it's a pretty incredible place to be, right? We've gotten all this fancy new, often open source, increasingly commoditized models. Algorithms are really algorithms singular these days, and a lot of ML and platforms that are out there. All the tools, lots of the education coming out too. But the trade-off is they're all super data hungry, and the data is at the center of everything. So, I think, I think obviously, one of the things that we've worked on for over half a decade are kind of, well, I'll say. We also are strong believers, even down to the theory, that you can't just, make some auto magic solution to this data problem either, right? Has to be human in the loop in some way.
Yeah.
What we've been working on, both academic side and company for over half a decade, is can we make it more programmatic? Can we make that human in the loop look more like software development? Right. And whether it's our approach or something like that, I think that is the way forward. Where we don't view AI as a magic box, Jeff, to your point, where it's just deployed and done, and then it's never updated. It is a journey, it's a living thing, but it's a journey, hopefully, that begins to look much more like the journey of any other mature software system, where you expect to have, maintenance and changes to spec, and, it doesn't require a, 3-quarter long relabeling or recurating or recollection effort. It's something, you monitor, you make it part of your practice, you do ops, there's a lot of talk in the space about ML ops. And then, with an approach like Snorkel or some other approach, you go back and you update your data and you update your models. And
right.
I think where we're stuck right now is that we all kind of know that it has to be that living process, but it's so painful and labor intensive to do that we don't know how to approach it. And so obviously that's the problem we're trying to solve, but it's really the field's effort that is really exciting to see. From all sorts of
it's been interesting watching a business shift so much over the last just 10 years. Like when I was taking courses on this, like we'd be given data sets with 100,000 records, and it was get to the right answer academically, but it was also like figure out a way to even just process that with even something as simple as like a basic neural network or like a decision tree or something. And now, there's limitless calculation capability everywhere. You can throw this at distributed cloud computing, and you can process 1 billion records in something that 10 years ago would have been impossible. Yeah. So it's been fascinating watching the underlying capacity become commoditized, and to your point, like even the algorithms are commoditized now. So like it's really interesting, which I think again brings us nicely into our next and last question. So how do you expect AI to change the business world over the next 7 years? And I'm going to add a caveat to this: how do you expect AI to change over the next 7 years? So let's start with Alex. What do you think?
Oh man, the toughest question. I got the wrong rotation here. So yep. I think for business, I know we're short on time. I mean, I'm a big believer that we're not going to suddenly leap to the singularity and replace people. I think AI is going to be like supercharged software, right? So we're going to see it, speeding up and automating how a lot of traditional processes are done. They're either done by hand, done by labor-intensive coding, or not done at all, like reading through all your contracts or all your scientific articles or your R&D notebooks, et cetera. So I think it's going to be very much, assist and accelerate rather than full-scale automate. Other than in some isolated areas where that full automation will happen. And then I think in terms of technology, I think there's actually a lot of interesting research going on right now in the field. Recent ML conferences around how do you think of ML and AI if you're thinking of it as part of a collaboration between human and AI. That's not something I directly work in, but I think that research is fascinating. And then also just putting data more at the center of things. That is the area that I work in, and various ways. There's a flurry of research as well as commercial activity there. So those are some ways I think AI will change. Then of course, explainability, trust, auditability, all these things are major areas of research. We're still just as a field figuring them out, but they're obviously so important. So I feel very bullish that we'll see very big advances in those areas as well over the next couple of years.
Excellent, thank you, Robert. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with Alex. There's going to be a significant, successes and growth around augmentation of human processes. I don't think in the next 7 years we're going to see a complete replacement of human activities with AI and machine learning capabilities. I think there's going to be the continuation of the augmentation. So if you think about basic processes within companies, things like pricing, things like quotation, if you think about basic, to other point, documentation, legal documents, contracts, entities, and things like that, that you're going to continue to see that augmentation of human activities driving more efficiencies and driving faster response speed and things like that. But I also think one fundamental thing that's going to change in AI itself is a lot of companies have tried and failed around the data aspect. I think the realization that data is at the core of AI is becoming well accepted, well known. And I think you see a trend of data scientist careers and people hiring data scientists. It's really at the core of making sure that the data that is needed and required to support AI and machine learning going forward is robust, it is clean, it is concise and clear. And I think in the next 7 years, that's the biggest growth that you're going to see is around that space. It's around data integrity, data curation for AI and machine learning capabilities.
Excellent, thank you. Jose, we have a few minutes left. What are your thoughts here?
Let me tell you from another angle. What I think is that we are at an inflection point. And what it will happen is that there are going to be significant changes within the firms, the corporations, and that's something that Robert was pointing out too. But what you will see is that the decision-making processes at the core of the corporations, it's going to shift from the salesman to more data science type people, data science trained people. So you're going to be moving from the gut feeling to the data-driven decisions. So, and I think that what it will happen is that there's an inflection point within the companies, and there's going to be a big change at which are the companies that are successful. and it's going to be, in some sense, like a bimodal distribution. There are going to be some corporations, some firms that are really able to understand the change and to serve much better their customers with the significantly smaller margins in their operations, but serving larger constituencies. And it's going to be kind of like a winner takes all in some sense. And there are going to be some of the laggards that might just not be around in 7 years.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, everyone's been spot on there. I love the idea of automating small tasks and building those up to larger and larger and more intelligent systems. So with that, I want to thank everybody for your time. Robert, Alex, Jose, thank you very much. This has been a great discussion. Loved the last 40 minutes. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Patrika.
Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you, Jose, Alex, Jeff, and Robert.